What if I told you that owning 5 income producing units could be what changes the financial trajectory of your life and your generation after you? And I'm going to tell you how, I'm going to show you how in this video, so stay tuned. Welcome to Momentum, where I share with you ideas on wealth creation, on prosperity, on spirituality, and on purpose. I'm your host today. My name is Moyo Mamara. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, why 5 income producing units? And by the way, when I say 5 income producing units, I'm talking about units outside of your primary residence, because generally speaking, your primary residence is not an income producing unit. That's where you live. That's what houses your family, and so on and so forth. But I'm talking about 5 investment apartment units that you're renting to others. You see, oftentimes the difference between financial anxiety and generational stability comes down to one word: ownership, what you own. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, 5, like I said. Well, it's kind of arbitrary, but not quite so. Number one, it could be 5, it could be 10, it could be 15, 20, it could be 100. Definitely the more the better. But I'm saying at least 5 makes a difference. Number one, 5 is the number of grace in Scripture, right? It represents the abundance grace of God. It represents the generosity of God. But another reason why I actually really like it from a theological perspective is that connected with this idea of the Jubilee, which was 50 years in ancient Israel. And the year of the Jubilee was that year, so 5 cycles of 10 years, was that year where people were liberated from any type of servitude that they were facing as an attempt to repay a debt. They were freed from debts. Their debts were wiped out. They were forgiven. Their debts were canceled, and so on and so forth. And so if you think about the Jubilee, it has strong economic undertones. And what I'm talking about is, how do you liberate yourself from whatever financial situation that you're in right now? How do you liberate the generation after you from whatever financial predicament that you may find yourself in right now, or at least change that trajectory more positively for the individuals that are after you? In Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 18, God says to his people, it says that I am the one who gives you the empowerment to create wealth. See, the ownership of real estate is one of the clearest divine expressions of that empowerment for wealth creation. If you look in Genesis chapter 1, from the very onset, from the beginning of Scripture, the Bible talks about land. God sets the humans in the land in the Garden of Eden. And as you continue to follow the narrative arc of Scripture, the focus is always around the land. God intends to establish the people in the land. It talks about blessing the people in the land. It talks about blessing them in the harvest and the produce of the land, in the works of their hands in the land. Now, I understand that they are an agrarian society, but a lot of those truths still matter today and still apply today, right? If you think about Maslow's hierarchy of need, land ownership or shelter, a roof over your head, is one of the core basic needs of a person before you start pursuing things that are aspirational, right? So after like your physiological needs like food and so on and so forth, where you live and having shelter is a basic necessity for every single person. Now, even in Scripture, God talks about how after he had liberated the people from the bondage of Pharaoh, how he was going to take them into the land of promise. So this concept of owning real estate is an idea that is very foundational and is very, very important. Now, let's talk about some wealth principles of ownership here, which I'd like to have you think about and I think resonates here. So number one thing that you have to understand is renters fund the wealth of owners. So when you own real estate, you have people who are renting. Now you're delivering, like I said, according to Maslow's research, a basic need for people. You're delivering shelter. You're creating a place where people can call home for people. And these people are paying you rent because you own that property, right? And so once they're doing that for you, they're helping you to create wealth. If you also look at the top 10% in society, these individuals tend to have real estate as a core part of their total ownership and investment portfolio. This is not an accident. This is something that's intentional. It's something that's laden with purpose. And there's a principle in there, right, for your own wealth creation as well. God's first instruction to humans was that they should have dominion in Genesis chapter 1, verse 28. After he had created humans in his image and after his likeness, what he says to them is, be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth, subdue it. And after that, it says, have dominion. So owning real estate, owning land, owning property is also a way to experience and to express that dominion that God has given every single person as well. Let's talk about a few benefits of real estate, right? You have the benefit of leverage. You have the benefit of depreciation. You have cash flow that it generates for you, right? And a lot of people think about the cash flow that you can get, the cash flow dynamics from real estate, which is definitely important. But also you have to understand that real estate consistently appreciates in value over time. And then there's one other thing that's not often talked about as it relates to real estate is the right of participation. You see, when you are an owner in any community of property, it gives you a right to participate because you have ownership, you have an expression of dominion through your ownership of that property. It gives you a right to participate in a way that none other, if you're a renter in that community, doesn't have the ability to participate in. So those are some core principles of wealth creation as it relates to owning real estate. Now, why is real estate the most accessible path to wealth? I say this all the time, that if you look all through the history of the human race, those who own land and a lot of land or a lot of real estate tend to be amongst the highest, wealthiest people in society. It's all through human history. It has been a very core part of rising to the highest caste in society is land ownership. So the kings own land. The wealthiest people, the nobles in society, always own land. And the principle of ownership in real estate is one that is very unique. It's slow and steady. Oftentimes, I'm talking to people about why they need to own real estate. When I run the numbers for them, it's like, But you see, what I'm talking about here is generational transformation. A generation is about 40 years. So if you're trying to play the real estate game for wealth creation, you have to be thinking long term. You have to be thinking generationally. You have to be thinking 40 years. You can't be a person with this mindset of how do I get rich today, tomorrow. I want to get rich tomorrow. I understand that. But it's a seed principle of consistency and stability over time. That's how real estate works. It's a seed that you plant and it nurtures you for generations. It creates wealth for you for generations. So if you're thinking about how do you become a participant in the game of generational wealth creation, you got to be thinking about how you own real estate. And the number that I'm putting in front of us right now is 5 income producing assets, 5 investment units. Now, other than your personal residence, right? Because we're not counting that. So you own your personal residence, but you're then targeting at least 5. And the average person can do this. And trust me, we're going to get into numbers there, right? So crypto, stocks, all of those things, nothing wrong with those things. In fact, as a matter of fact, I own them. I've invested in those. I continue to invest in those and so on and so forth. But I'm telling you that one of the things that you can do differently is that you ought to own real estate. Now, I talked about some of the benefits, right? So let's talk about the appreciation. In the United States of America, the average appreciation of real estate is historically been around 4% a year. So that means that after about 15 years, your property on average would double in value. And after about 30 years, we're looking at about a 3 to 3.5 times increase in value. So if you buy a property today, that's $100,000. In about 30 years, that property is worth about $300,000 to $350,000. We're going to talk about why that's relevant. So there's the appreciation dynamic we talked about. There is the depreciation dynamic that also you get a benefit from when you own real estate. Now, what does that mean? In the United States of America, the taxing authority, the IRS, what they've said is this. They allow you to take the cost of owning that real estate and to reduce your tax liability. And this is how it works. So take what they say is like every piece of property, right, has a useful life of about 27 and a half years. Let's use 30 years for round numbers, right? So 30 years. So say, for example, you buy a property today that's $300,000, right? So in 30 years, what they're saying is that $300,000 property is going to be worth zero. Now, because you own that property today and they recognize the value of you owning that property and they want to reward you and incentivize you for actual ownership, what they say is this. Well, 30 years, we're going to allow you to take the cost that's eroded, right? The value, quote unquote, that's eroded in the form of a cost to you. So $300,000 divided by 30 is $10,000 a year. So what the IRS says is this. Well, every year we're going to give you an allowance of $10,000 to reduce your tax income. So say, for example, you own a property is $300,000. And again, it could get more complex, but I'm trying to simplify the concept and idea for you, right? So you earn maybe $100,000, you own $300,000. So instead of the IRS taxing you on the entire $100,000, because you own a property, they'd say this, you know what? $10,000, which is 300,000 divided by 30, that's $10,000 every year. We're going to allow you reduce your income, your taxable income by $10,000. So now instead of the IRS taxing you on $100,000, they are taxing you on $90,000. So that's the benefit of depreciation. So we've talked about the appreciation. We've talked about the depreciation right now, but you also have the benefit of leverage in real estate. Now, financial institutions, banks, lenders, etc., the lowest interest rate you can get to borrow against is against real estate, right? You can get a personal loan, it's much higher. You can get a car note, it's high. But when it comes to owning real estate, it is the lowest interest rates that you're going to get. So banks love it as well because they can touch it, you can feel it. It's a hard asset. I know exactly where that property is. I can go there, right? And multifamily is one of the cheapest, or apartments or residential units. It's one of the cheapest costs of borrowing for ownership. So you get the benefit of leverage as well in real estate, right? And like I said, the ownership that you get from real estate also allows you the ability to participate in society. So you have all these benefits that are compounding benefits because you own a property. So owning one property is good, but you get all these compounding properties benefits when you own multiple properties. So imagine owning five investment income producing units. Now, let's get into the math right now. So I'm talking about five. Why 5 units? Why am I saying owning 5 apartments, 5 investments? Why is that a good idea? Let's do some math right now, right? Maybe not your favorite subject, but as it relates to creating wealth, it's your favorite topic right now. Now, I've shared with you the ideas. I've shared with you the principles that undergird what it is that I'm talking about. Let's run some math around it right now. You see, the median price of a starter home in the United States is roughly around $250,000. So think about homes that are in that 30 to 50 percentile in the United States. So that's about $250,000. So if you buy 5 of those, you've created and accumulated a portfolio of $1.25 million. Now, one of the things that you have to think about, which I think a lot of people, it gets lost in a lot of people, is you need to understand that I'm talking about a starter home. It's not anything fancy. This is just like a simple starter home, right, that you can buy. And why is this important is because starter homes tend to be the homes that the general mass of population, the critical mass of responsible, hardworking individuals in society, that's where they usually start from. That's why it's called a starter home, right, if you're following what I'm saying. The average person can actually buy one of these $250,000 properties every year, one a year. So when I'm talking about accumulating 5 income producing assets, I'm giving you a plan that you can do in as quickly as 5 years. And we're going to hear right now why this is transformational for you personally, but also for the generation after you. So, but even if you think 5 years is a stretch, 10 years, that's fine. That doesn't really matter. Maybe you do one every 2 years instead of one every year. Maybe you do one every 3 years. It really doesn't matter. But it's like you're creating a system, you're creating a structure for your financial transformation and for generational transformation, right? So $250,000, and let's assume you put down 20%. Average interest rate today is about 7% to buy one of these things, right? And you do this once every 3 years. So you put down $50,000. Now, I can show you ways, and I'll talk about this in a different video, on how you can buy properties, how you can hack your way. So some home buying strategies, some financing strategies for acquiring real estate, which I'll talk about in a different video, right? But let's just use, for easy math right now, 20% down. You put 50 grand, it's 7% interest rate. You add on your taxes, you add on your insurance. At the end of the day, you're looking at a total payment of about $1,700 a month. The average rental price or rental rate for one of these starter homes in the United States is about $2,000. So what I'm talking about right now is a strategy that creates for you a cash flow of about $300 every single month. $300 times 12 is $3,600 a month. If you own 5 of these in whatever timeline, we're talking about you owning or getting about $18,000 a year. Now, remember what I said earlier on in this video. There's a seed principle in real estate that is transformational over a generation, right? Now, you're probably thinking, and I get it, $300 a month is not going to change your life. 100% understand that. I totally understand that. But the idea that I'm sharing with you, if worked over a long period of time, because we're talking about how you create generational wealth, is game changing. It's transformational, not just for you, but also for those that are after you. So it's $18,000 a year if each one of these things is producing $300. Now, let's sort of push this even further, right? Because we're not even running this math and talking about the benefits of the depreciation that you're going to get. So let's talk about the appreciation, right? So say, for example, you do this as a strategy and you say, I'm going to buy one for every kid. Maybe there's someone out there you're watching, which, hold on, by the way, if you're watching this right now and you have a kid around you, like a son or daughter or nephew or a niece, you ought to be watching this video with them. Because not only are you making the moves to transform your life and their lives, it's generational knowledge and wisdom that I'm sharing with you right now, because if they perpetuate what it is that I'm talking about, it's compounding. It's one of the things that if you did and they learned how to do, and the children thereafter them learned how to do it as well, they would be amongst the wealthiest people in society. For sure. I can 99% guarantee you this reality, right? So say, for example, you decide, I want 5 kids and I'm just going to buy one for every kid that I have. And you're probably thinking to myself, like, who wants 5 kids? I don't know. Like, some people want 5 kids out there in this world. And kudos to them. We respect them. In fact, the world needs more people like them because we need to have more babies. In fact, when God says be fruitful, in its basic, simplest definition in Genesis chapter 1, verse 28, it meant have babies, right? So y'all got to have a lot of babies, right? So that's what that is. Now, getting back right here to this. Say you bought one, right? In 15 years, like I said, that $250,000 property is now worth about $500,000. The other thing that is beautiful about what it is that I'm sharing with you, right, is think about it. You have a tenant in there. All you put down is $50,000 to buy this one property. It's 20% down. It's a starter home. It's $250,000. All I put down is $50,000. Every single month, you're getting a net cash flow of about $300, $3,600 every year. In 15 years, you would have collected over $50,000 from that property. The tenant in there would have paid down your mortgage as well. Now, someone's probably thinking to themselves that, well, what about repair costs and things of that nature? Yes, you're going to have some repair costs, right? So even if you wanted to haircut that, $50,000 collections by 20% and say I devote 20% to repairs, that's all right. You would have collected about $40,000. The tenant would have paid down the property mortgage, And this property now is worth nearly double. The equity in that property is now about $400,000. 400 in 15 years. Why? This is from one property. Why is this a beautiful idea? You see, because, and why do I think this is generationally transformational? And why the average person can do it. Say you had a kid and you bought one when you had this kid. Now, all of a sudden, 15 years after, kids in high school, you're thinking about college, you're not stressed out about what's going to happen with that kid. Oh, now I gotta make sure like I can get a good credit score and, start like prepping myself for student loans and financial aid. And you start having that conversation with your children. No, I don't want my kids to take any student loans at all. So in addition to whatever 529 plan that I might be setting up for them, this is also a beautiful strategy, right? Because now I have $400,000. That equity, $400,000 in that property that's now worth about $500,000, I can take a loan against that, have a tenant continue to pay down that loan, and that loan that I take against the property can pay for my kids' college tuition, their room and board, all of that for 4 years when they're in college. So now I'm not setting my kids up to start from behind. I'm setting them up to have an advantage because now we're secure. He or she can focus on school, focus on doing well. It's even better if they get a scholarship because now they have that property. They can get done with it and think about 30 years from when you start. Again, we're still doing the math right now on one property that you bought for $250,000. That property is probably worth about 3 to 3.5 times. So 3 times 250 is about $750,000. So let's use $800,000, right? Because 3.5 times is a little bit more than that. It's more like $800,000 plus, $811,000 or $810,000. So now you have that property that you bought for $250,000. In 30 years' time, your tenants would have paid down all the mortgage. Now, assuming you got a 30-year mortgage, all of the mortgage is paid down. Now you have a property that all you put down was $50,000. It's now worth $800,000. The rent you're collecting on that property right now is no longer just the $2,000 rent that you were collecting that had a net cash flow of $300,000. All of that now is probably about $6,000 a month you're collecting, or $7,000 a month, right, that you're collecting, and there's zero mortgage. Yeah, you got to pay your taxes, you got to pay your insurance, you got to allow a little bit for repairs and things of that nature. But guess what? Your net cash flow on that property is easily going to be about $5,000 every single month from that one property. And that property now has equity. It's all equity because there's no mortgage of $800,000. Now, if after all of that, you gave that one kid and said, you know what? Great job. Here's how I'm starting your life right now for you. Take that property. Now you got a kid, effectively, no student loans. You've taught them this principle as well. They've started out their life. They have a job. Maybe they have bought their own first starter home as well. And now you give them this. They're starting out in life as a millionaire. And they're getting this cash flow that's coming from the property because they own that property. Now, just like imagine this times 5. You systematically do it. Now you have a portfolio in 30 years' time that's worth about $4 million. Just imagine what that does to your life in 30 years from today. And what we're thinking generationally, right? We're not short-term thinkers here because we're trying to create generational wealth. This is then what you pass on to your children. And remember, the Bible tells us that a good man or a good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children. This is a transformational idea. Now, this is a mindset that you have to adopt, right? Because it shifts you from thinking about yourself as a consumer to thinking of yourself as an owner and a participant in society. You're a builder right now. You're building something. You're building a legacy for not just only, for the next generation, but for the generation thereafter as well. And this is insights. This is wisdom. Remember in Proverbs 24 verse 3, it says that by wisdom is a house built, by understanding it is established, by knowledge it is filled with all good things. And everything that I'm sharing with you are principles for you to build generational wealth. The knowledge that I'm giving you is what helps you change your life. The understanding that I'm giving you is what helps you shift your financial destiny and the trajectory of the generation after you. So this is true stewardship that the Bible teaches us. This is true stewardship that the Bible is trying to help you. Now, remember what I said. One of the clearest expression of your faith for wealth creation is what I'm talking about, is that you're able to release your faith for ownership, faith for building. Believe God for that $50,000 or for that 20% down. Because even though I'm saying 20% down, the reality is that in America today, you can buy a property for as little as 3.5% down if you're going to be an owner-occupant in that particular property. And I'm going to talk about this strategy in a different video, or 5% down. But on average, if you're buying an investment property, it's about 20% that you're looking to put down. You can believe God for that. You can believe God to direct you and to order your steps to the right property. Believe Him for the right relationships with the lenders, with the real estate brokers, and believe Him for the blessing to work this out, the wisdom, the how to, the knowledge for you to get this done. And this is what I'm talking about as it being transformational. So it's faith plus strategy. Now, I've given you the strategy right now in terms of what I've shared with you right now. It then is up to you to then say, how do I engage the spiritual principles that I've been sharing with you about faith, about vision, right? It might not look like a reality for you right now, but you could have a vision. You can get your imagination working and start thinking about yourself as an owner, start thinking about yourself as a builder, and start saying to myself, how do I visualize? Like it might be dark right now, but how do I call light out of darkness right now? And you start releasing your words. That's releasing your faith. You start speaking these things into reality. You start creating a system. Start creating order around everything that I'm sharing with you right now. It's a strategy around everything that I'm sharing with you right now. So I've given you the tools. I have given you the strategy that you can implement right now that would change your life and change your destiny. But you then have to trust God to cause this to be a reality. You see, because your faith through prayer, through vision, is what helps you with the structure, the insight that God would give you. The Bible tells us in Genesis chapter 41 that Joseph in Egypt was able to interpret divine insight and change that into economic strategy. You remember when the Pharaoh had a dream, right? And when Pharaoh showed up on the scene, and when Joseph showed up on the scene, what Joseph did after he heard the dream of the Pharaoh was he was able to interpret the dream, but then he was also able to give a divine strategy that created economic prosperity in the known world at that point in time. So you've been praying, you've been prophesying. Now, here it is right now. God is able to give you a divine strategy. I've just shared with you some tools right now that you can implement. And that's where you need to be engaging your faith and releasing your faith such that God can help you interpret what I'm saying in a manner that transforms your life and your destiny. And we're saying just 5. It's a challenge for you right now, just 5. Trying to wrap up right now. Real estate is generational wealth made visible. It's something you can start right now. It's what you've built is what you've created. It's not intangible. It's very tangible. And you can show your kids this. And you can say, look, let's go for a ride. Let's take a ride. These are the properties that I've bought. They belong to us. They belong to our family. I'm ultimately going to pass this on to you and start teaching them these principles as well. I've bought so many properties in my life from people who are quote unquote very average people. And I don't say that in a demeaning way, but what I'm trying to do here is really simplify the principle so you don't think it's something that is beyond you or beyond your reach. There's a guy that I bought a property from. I bought this property for about $500,000, $500,000. It was a 3-apartment unit property in a neighborhood here in Chicago. It needed some renovation work, and I was going to do the renovation. And this guy was a blue-collar worker, and he had bought this property about 25 years ago for about $120,000. Now, if we think about what it is that I'm talking about right now, and he put down 20%, for example, plus closing costs, all he put down was about $25,000. At the time when I was buying the property, there was very little mortgage on the property because I saw the closing statement. This guy walked away with about $450,000, $400 in cash, after he had paid whatever was the outstanding mortgage on that property. And all he put down was about $25,000, a blue-collar worker. So what I'm sharing with you isn't just like a theoretical principle. It's something that I've witnessed and I've encountered myself. I say to myself that there are some properties that I bought like 20 years ago. I sold them shortly thereafter for whatever reason. But knowing what I know right now, which is based off of my lessons, my experience, and just also divine prompting on the inside of me, what I'm sharing with you right now is life-changing. I would never have sold. The properties that I own right now, I own a lot of apartment units. I own way more than the 5 number that I'm telling you right now. What I'm sharing with you is something that I've experienced and it's something that I've seen, right? And you can do the same thing as well in your life for your generation, right? When you own property, like I said, it gives you participation, it gives you influence. It is one of the ways to express the dominion mandate that God has given unto you as well. In Proverbs chapter 13, verse 22, it says, a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. Now, wrapping up right now, a few thoughts. You're probably thinking to yourself, how do I get started? Where do I start from right now? Maybe you are afraid, maybe you don't understand this. I have videos that talk about fear and how you can deal with that fear, right? You have to take a step of faith because I believe that there's a conviction that you have on the inside of you right now that you have to respond to. You've been praying, and that's why you got led to this video, and you're watching this video right now. You have to get your imagination working right now. So rather than seeing things through the lenses of fear, I want you to start seeing things through the lenses of opportunity right now. Rather than thinking about what isn't, start thinking about what could be. Let the vision start working on the inside of you right now. You might be saying to yourself right now, but look, how am I going to get the down payment to get a property? Faith always takes the first step. It starts with you making a commitment. It starts with you visualizing and then speaking these words out. You start making the commitment that I will own. And this is the challenge right now to us right now, right? So I call it in here 5-door challenge. 5 property, 5 investment unit challenge, the 5-door challenge. In the next 5 years or in the next 10 years, I want you to personalize this. I want you to write this down. In the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, I will own 5 income producing doors. I will own 5 income producing units. I want you to say that to yourself. I want you to write that somewhere right now. Make it plain. Write the vision down. Make it plain. Put it up on your mirror in your bathroom. Put it up on your refrigerator. Let your kids see it. Make that commitment in the next 5 years. Maybe for you, it's in the next 7 years. Or maybe for you, it's in the next 10 years. It really doesn't matter. But make the commitment to own 5 income producing properties. Speak it into existence. Affirm it on a daily basis. Pray about it on a daily basis. Visualize yourself owning these 5 income producing apartment units, right? And do that consistently. That's the first step. What would happen is God would then begin to show you how. Like I said in another video, I'm going to share with you some strategies that I think would help you get on the right path. But the right information would come your way. The right relationships would come your way. The right opportunities would come your way. See, because when you have made this commitment, I can guarantee you're going to start seeing the opportunities come your way for you to actually break into ownership of properties this way, right? So I want you to raise your right hand and pledge to the 5-door challenge. The 5-door challenge. That's all I have for you today. Now, if you found this very, very helpful, I would like you to like this video. Please share this video with someone who you think would find it helpful and beneficial. And if you haven't done that already, I would encourage you to actually subscribe as well so you get the next video notification when I actually drop that video notification. Remember, 5-door challenge, right? Oh, I think I actually had a hashtag for it. 5-door faith, doors of destiny. Those are hashtags. So go on my Instagram channel and tag me at Moyo Mamora, MOYOMAMORA, and then put your pledge up there and use the hashtag 5-door challenge or 5-door faith. It starts right now with your commitment, and I trust that God will do it in your life as well. Change your generation, change your destiny with real estate. God bless you and see you next time.